The budget build is back.
but smaller.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SCX24 budget build off. In this version of the budget build off, again, Matt from the Scale Builders Guild will be joining me, and we're going to be doing the same style of budget build that I've done on 4 prior vehicles. In this style of budget build, it doesn't mean as cheap as possible. It just means on a set budget. So we use a set dollar amount and we upgrade the vehicle on that dollar amount every single week. And if we don't spend some of the money on one week, it transfers to the next. If we run over a little bit, same happens. The following week, we pull a little from it. As I mentioned, in this version of the budget build off, we are going to be using SCX24s. Now, Matt and I chose different models of the SCX24 to start with. I had 2 of these SCX24 Bettys. These were a limited production. There was 10,000 of them made. I picked up 2 of them, one of them to run, one of them still sits in this box. But for this budget build, I'm going to be taking number 9097, and it is going to be the subject of what this series is going to tackle. In the 2 previous seasons of the budget build off, we've done 16 weeks. Now, being that these rigs are so much smaller, we're going to cut that down to just 8 weeks. One of those 8 weeks will be a running video, and one of them has to be a freebie week, meaning that we have to do whatever upgrades we plan with spending almost no money. The final week of the budget build off, we will be upgrading and showing the final running video for the vehicle. Now, onto the budget. Again, budget doesn't mean cheap. It just means a set amount of money. And for this vehicle, just like the previous vehicles, we're doing $50 a week. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to spend $50 a week. If you wanted to follow the path, you could spread it out however you wanted. And if you do the math, if we upgraded every single week, that'd be an extra $400 onto one of these trucks. But like we said, there's gonna be a freebie week, there's gonna be a running video week. Still going to put in a decent amount of upgrades to this vehicle though. So in the end, we should turn out a pretty nice vehicle. Now, for myself, I plan to make this a performance-oriented SCX24. Up to this point, SCX24s have not really been an area that I, myself, have really dove into all that much. I, for the most part, prefer 1/10 scale sized vehicles, but SCX24s are very popular, and they're also just similar to the rest of our trucks. All of the same principles scale down to them. So I'm going to dive into this thing and try and use everything that I know in 1/10 scale and apply it to 1/24 scale. Now, even though I haven't really dove into upgrading the SCX24s, I've still been around them, I've worked on them a little bit, and I'm aware of the common issues that they have. So I have a general knowledge base that I think will help me make the right decisions for this vehicle as we continue. I've got a decent amount of battery packs through this Betty, so it's not brand new, but close enough that I think we're fine using it as the beginning subject for this series. Now, for this week's upgrade, wheels and tires are my goal. Wheels and tires are always kind of the first thing that I like to jump towards when I'm looking at a 1/10 scale rig. So 1/24 scale going to be no different. Now, I have a pile of wheel and tire options here in front of me from different manufacturers, different styles, different sizes. Today, we're gonna go over looking at the ones that I have here, and we're going to choose what we're going to fit to this SCX24. The first thing we're going to discuss is wheel options. I have 4 different sets of wheels here from 2 different manufacturers. I've got 2 sets of wheels from Power Hobby and 2 sets of wheels from RC 4-Wheel Drive. The most important thing is that all 4 sets of these are beadlocks, meaning that there's a mechanical system to clamp the tire on. No gluing the tires like the stock tires have. I want to be able to remove the tires, either tune foam, add weight, whatever it is. I want to be able to dismount and mount the tires by removing the screws that hold the 2 halves of the wheel together. Beadlocks are a huge advantage if you want to play around more with the tuning of your tires or changing tires, whatever it is. Beadlocks, I think, are an awesome first step and they make things look a little bit better. Now, the first two sets that I have here on my right are from Power Hobby. I've got one set that's kind of a 6-spoke bronze color. Power Hobbies calls these the F15 style. They look kind of import wheel-ish to me, and the bronze color, well, I don't think that bronze and green clash really. I don't know that it's the right fit for the truck. Also, these are $45.99 for the set of 4. So the price isn't bad, but if we do these, nothing else is gonna fit in the budget for this week. The wheels that are right next to it here are the D55 style. These are kind of a solid face, like American Racing Outlaw style wheel. I really like the way that these look. I think these would probably be the wheel choice that I would go with if the price was going to allow for a little bit more breathing room for other upgrades. But at $42.99, I don't think that these are going to be the choice for this week. Moving on to the RC 4-wheel drive options, the other set that I have here is another kind of an American Racing wheel looking 5-spoke style. Again, I think that these are a great looking wheel set. Beadlock again, scale hardware around the lug nut area. I think these would be a great choice and look really good. But these are our most expensive wheels at $69 for the set of 4. These don't even fit within this week's budget. So while I would like to use these, it would be a toss-up between these and these other versions from Power Hobby. They don't really work for this week's video. But next to it, we've got here the generic stamped steel style wheels. These are the budget build friends, $24.99. The style of these, not as good as the rest, but they're gonna get the job done. A 6 lug nut style center, just a regular stamped wagon wheel style wheel face. $24.99 though leaves us a good amount of money left for the rest of this week's upgrades. Then we move on to tires. Now, tires, unlike wheels, have more variables. Tread design, rubber compound, tire height, a lot of things play in, and we're going to talk about what these tires have to offer and why we're going to choose the set that we are for the budget build. The first set here is from RC 4-wheel drive. These are the only set of licensed tires that we have here out of the 4 sets. These are an actual BF Goodrich. These are the KM3s. These are labeled as a 1-inch tire, just like a 1.9-inch tire. That doesn't refer to the overall height, it refers to the size of the wheel. Now, the overall height on these is right at 50 millimeters. I really like the fact that these are licensed. Specifically, I like the fact that they're BF Goodrich. They're also the least expensive tires that we have here, $7.99 a pair. But let's look at our other options. Next here, I've got these, which are the Power Hobby Defender. These are a non-licensed, but a very open tread pattern, something that would likely have a little bit more grip on the rocks. I don't know exactly how the tread compound is going to compare between any of these specifically yet, because these aren't a normal compound tire that I deal with. Now, these Defenders, however, closer to 45 millimeters tall. So we're looking at, you know, almost a 1/4 inch shorter than these BFG KM3s. Right next to it, another set of Power Hobbies. These are the Armor tires. Very similar to the Defender as far as the compound, the tread, a different style, but also very open still. And the size, still the same at 45 millimeters. Both of these sets of tires from Power Hobby priced right at $20 for all 4. So they still fit within our budget, but they're a little bit more expensive than the RC 4-wheel drive option. And then we've got our next set of tires here from a brand outside of either of the two that we've talked about so far. These are the Little Guy Racing Parts tires. These actually come from Jordan Pellegrino, a full-size off-road racer who really enjoys these little SCX24s. The first thing to note about these Little Guy Racing Parts tires though is the size. These things measure 60 millimeters. So far and away the biggest tires that we have out of the 4 here. And these are the tires that I think I'm leaning towards. The extra height out of these, I think could really help. But the one thing that I don't know is what kind of body trimming we're gonna have to do to this body to make those big tires clear. The Little Guy Racing Parts tires are $12.99, so a little bit more expensive than any of the other options, but $12.99 plus our $24.99 puts us right there at our budget for this week. Maybe $1 over. We're gonna let it slide. We'll take care of that next week. But first thing we're gonna do, check these out, see if they're going to be feasible to stuff under this SCX24 Betty. Using these RC 4-wheel drive wheels, these are a multi-piece beadlock. The black outer can goes inside of the tire, and then you take the rear ring of the RC four-wheel drive wheel and the front face of the wheel, and you push them in from the respective sides of the tire. Now, the whole thing gets sandwiched together using the 6 screws that go through the lug nut area of the wheel, and they thread into this small hub that goes on the back side. So the whole clamping force of the beadlock wheel is created by those 6 holes near the center of the wheel. In the end, we ended up fitting those little guy racing parts tires onto the Betty. These things are massive. The sidewall technically says 63 millimeters tall, so definitely the tallest tire that I've seen for these SCX24s. And I think in the end, that will likely help the performance of this truck as we go further. These are definitely one of the more difficult style beadlocks to assemble, no matter if it's 1/10 scale or 1/24 scale. These are by far my least favorite design, but they're cheap for a reason. Another thing to note is that I vent all of my tires. These tires are small, and if you want them to conform to the obstacles, you need to vent them. I recommend this on all my 1/10 scale, no difference for the 1/24 scale. For these, I used a set of flush cut and made very small holes on the tire. 2 per tire is probably best. Now, on top of the larger size of these wheels, we also have a wider track width now. That's both attributed to the width of the tire and the offset of that beadlock wheel. A little bit wider than those stock little Rock Lizard tires and glue-on wheels that were provided with the SCX24 Betty. Now, as I mentioned, we went with these larger tires, and they didn't really just look or fit appropriately when just bolting them on and putting them underneath of the vehicle. So I decided to do some body trimming to make them fit. If I wasn't willing to do that, then I likely would have changed to those RC four-wheel drive tires. But I was willing to hack up this body, so that's what we did. I also took the edge off the rear bumper mount to make sure that there was plenty of clearance for that tire. To trim that rear bumper, I removed it from the body with the 4 screws that go in from the back side of the bumper. Removing all of that allowed me to cut the bumper, trim, and then sand it to fit, just to give it a little bit more polished look once we put it back onto the truck. It does have kind of open ends now, which doesn't look the best, but it'll do. From there, I cut off the rear fender flares of the body completely, because I also wanted to extend the rear wheel opening a little bit more towards the rear bumper to make these tires kind of fit better under full articulation. In the front, I mainly took off the outer lip of the fender, which dropped down a little bit, and the size of the wheel opening was already more appropriate to this size of tire. The front bumper probably could also use a little bit of trimming, but it's not terrible. For now, we're gonna leave it because we're likely going to change that front bumper. For now, we're just gonna keep running it like it is. The weight difference between these plastic wheels and stock tires to the new larger tires and metal beadlocks is noticeable, but not significant. So it's going to give us a little bit more down low weight, and with the tires being a little bit larger, it's going to kind of effectively give us a little bit more stability in some ways also. We did raise the truck, so we technically raised the center of gravity, but we'll get to adjusting the center of gravity as we continue with this budget build off. As I mentioned, my total for this week, just a hair over $50. So we got accomplished what I wanted to. We got a big change done to the vehicle right off the jump. Definitely what I was looking to do. And squeezing the tires and wheels into this week was something that I was glad that we were able to accomplish. Make sure and come back to the series every Wednesday for the next 8 weeks. Matt and I will both be uploading our videos at the exact same time. I imagine that Matt and I will take very different directions with our end goals for these vehicles. No different than the 1/10 scale. It's really up to your imagination and what you're trying to accomplish with your own build. So you'll get to see how the more extreme ends of those 2 paths can likely go. If you guys have suggestions for what you'd like to see next week, I've got a big box of upgrades for this vehicle already. Maybe those are already in the box. So put your suggestions for what you think we should do in the comments below. Remember, $50 a week is what we're shooting for. And with all of these videos, I'll put links to the products that we showed in the description below. You can go check those out. And see exactly what we're using and where you can get it. As with all the videos, I appreciate you guys for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoy these. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the budget builds as soon as they get uploaded. And as always, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.